Welcome Java developers. So this is a continuation of the Java fundamental classes. So last class we had a conversation about the class. Now the topic is method. So what is a method? What is a method? So generally in the last class we had a conversation about the class, right? So in the class contains variables and methods or properties and actions. We call it as properties and actions. So each object contains definitely, the properties. We can discuss about the properties later, but each object definitely, it has some actions. You can take it as a table also. Table has some actions. As I mentioned, the previous best example, like mobile, right? So from the mobile, what we can do, we can talk about, if you want to make a call, then we can do, go to contact list and call it, and we can perform that. Any action, if you want to write any action, that action is a in generally we call it as action, but whereas if you come to the technical world, we call it as a method. But remember, this method should be inside the class only, inside the open and closing parenthesis. It shouldn't be cross outside. Shouldn't be cross outside. Okay, shouldn't be cross outside. Let's come back here and let's talk about the syntax. Okay, like we understood the method, right? The purpose of method is we define an action. Okay, so what is the syntax? Syntax is access modifier, okay, and return type, and then method name, and open and closing brackets. Here we can write optional arguments. Optional arguments. Okay, and open and closing parentheses. Okay, so like this, let's simplify this one and make it clear. Access modifier, we can call it as. Uh, just simple. Okay, first one is access modifier. Fine. The second one is return type. Okay. The third one is, the name of the method. And immediately it starts, open and closing open bracket, and we can define optional arguments. Here, as I mentioned, optional arguments means it depends on the action which we are performing. Sometimes we need some input data, so that data we can pass it as the arguments. In some actions, you don't need any input data, we can directly perform it. So in that case, these arguments, we don't pass any data to the arguments, okay, as an arguments. Okay, fine. This is the syntax. Okay, let's take it as a some notes, very important notes. If you want to create, if you want to declare any action or any method, right? If you want to define any method, we have to remember some notes. Then only the proper method be able to create. So what are the important nodes we can define? So number one, applicable access modifiers. Applicable access modifiers. You know, for methods, all access modifiers are applicable. All access modifiers are applicable. Public, protected, default, private, all four. We have a four access modifiers. All four access modifiers we can define in to the methods. Okay, but we may get a question, something like, let's say, what kind of uh, access modifier I need to take in what situation. It completely depends on the action which you are performing. If the action is only internal, you can take it as a private. If the action is you are sending it to the only, I mean, you are sharing only to the your children, right? or else your the children are below than anyone, like only for blood relation, right? In that case, what you can do, you can define an access modifier as a protected. If you want to publish this particular action to the universe, then you can define it as a public, right? So only certain package level, if you want to send, you can take it as a default access modifier. It's completely depends on the action, or depends on the method you are writing for the particular scenarios. That thing we have to be keep into mind. Okay, so that is the reason for access modifiers, all access modifiers are applicable. And let's come back to the written type. Here written type is very interesting. Okay, so all data types, all primitives and non-primitive data types are applicable. As I already mentioned, so we have a total two different category of data types in Java, right? So primitives and non-primitives. We have already discussed about this. Here in the written type, right? So applicable things, applicable uh, types for the written type is primitives we can define. So the primitives again we have segregated, right? Depends on the for numerics with decimal values, non-decimal values, and also boolean or character, char, these kind of things are primitives. So we can write anything. Depends on your the action which you are performing, or depends on your method you are writing it. So we can define all primitives. If you want to define any primitive, you can use it from the primitive section, data type section. If you want to write non-primitive, yes, of course that is also applicable, and that is also valid one. You can take it as written type as a non-primitive data type. No worries about that. Another very important thing is uh, wide keyword. Wide keyword. So this wide keyword, we can write it in case of from the action. I don't want to return any result. If you want to get result from the action, we can define either primitive or non-primitive, depends on your need. But if you don't want any result from the action, just you trigger it and you don't worry about the result. Okay, in that case, we can go with the wide as a written type. Okay, in that case, we can go with the wide as a written type. Very important kind of thing. Okay, wide as a written type. And the next one is method name. Okay, so we already learned about the class syntaxes, class method, class name, standard naming form, naming convention we have to follow. The similar way for method names also, we have to be very careful. Method name always starts with lowercase. Okay, always starts with lowercase. Which one? The method name always starts with lowercase. In case of method name contains more than one word, the second word onwards, okay, each word starts with capital letter, capital letter. Let me write some, sample method names, and we can understand better. Okay, and let's discuss about the last point, and we can go. The fourth point is optional arguments. So these optional arguments again we can define. We can send data, right, for the uh, to process the action. We have to send in case of if you want to send any input data, then we can send it as a part of optional arguments, right? If you don't send any input data, then that is fine, absolutely. If you want to send, you can send it. So that is the reason these optional arguments are completely, optional. It is no not mandatory to, for every method. No need to define it. We can keep it empty also. Okay, so but if you want to send data, some data to the as a parameter, what are the applicable values I can send? So again here it's a primitive and non-primitives. You see, here also we can define same primitives and non-primitives as an optional arguments, right? So it is repeatable kind of things, guys. Once you learn about the class, method, variables, and access modifier and data types, then maximum Java you can learn easily. Okay, this is how. So let's go back to write some examples. Let's go back to write some examples. So here we have defined access modifier is the first one. So what are the access modifier applicable? All access modifiers are applicable. So example, I can take it as a public as an access modifier. Yes, we have defined public. What is the return type? So return type is we can write either primitive or non-primitive. Let's say our intention is I want to write a two numbers sum. I want to add two numbers and return the result. Okay, I want to add two numbers and return the result. So first to write any method, what we have to understand, we have to first think ourselves. So what type of action we are going to write as a method in the Java? First we can think about the action. So here what I'm thinking in my case, like I want to write a method to add two numbers and return the result. That is the action which I'm going to write in a technical way. So how can we write it? So return type is example, concatenation I'm going to write integers, like int I'm going to take int as a primitive. So return type also int I'm expecting. So in that case, so return type is int and method name is example, it's a sum. And here arguments I'm going to pass into a comma into b, and finally I'm going to write open and closing brackets and I'm sending it here. So and remember, if you are expecting any result from the method, right, that is very important. If you are expecting any result from the method, make sure written keyword is very important. Written keyword is very important. Okay, if you define any data type, either primitive or non-primitive, doesn't matter. Any data type if you define, the return keyword is very important because it is expecting result. So in that case, what we have to do, we have to return the result because it is expecting. That is the main reason. If you define void as a keyword, then in that case, like we don't need to write any return type. Why? Because we know I'm not expecting any result from the method. Then I have defined it as a void. So in this case, I don't need to write any even written keyword as well here inside the method. Okay, so this is all about this is the how the method structure, simple method structure. If you write any method, so I mean to say any method, you can use either primitives or non-primitive. Example, we can continue here. Example, int here. Okay, int a comma int b. What I gonna do? I gonna take int c equal to a plus b and return c, because the combination of this, the addition of a plus b, the result is storing into the c. So finally returning the result. Why? Because this sum method is expecting the written value. That is the reason. Okay, but where I can define this one, like we have to write inside the class only. We cannot write outside the class. So example, if I want to write any class, any method, right? So what I gonna do? I gonna define example. Um, um, okay, let's remove the class here. I'm going to write another one. The class called public class maths as a class name, and here I'm going to write public um, example int sum of two numbers, sum of two numbers. If you want to write in the method name sum of two numbers, sum of two numbers. You can see here. So sum of two numbers. So sum is a one word and of is another word. Two is another word again. Numbers another word again. So all after method name starts with a lowercase, that is standard syntax we have to follow. And in case of method name contains more than this, I mean to say from second word onwards, definitely each word starts with a capital letter. You see here, O starts with a capital letter. Again, from the two is the another word here started with the T as a capital. And again, numbers, the last word, and here N is the capital letter. Why? Because it's a starting number. I mean starting letter. Okay, like this in case of multiple words are there inside the as a method name, then second word onwards we have to define you know capital letter. Each word starts with a capital letter, but make sure starting with lowercase. That is very important. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pass some variables into a comma into b. Okay, into c equal to a plus b. And finally we have to return result. Why? Because here we are expecting some result as a return type. Okay, I'm going to save it same way, like it is a maths as a class name dot java as an extension. Just saved it. Fine. So let's go back to the command prompt here. It is same way it is pointing. Okay, so let me clarify that. So yes, this is a place we have a maths. Okay, fine. So what I gonna do, yeah, Java C space maths. So maths.java. First I'm going to compile it. If no syntax errors, then obviously it compiled successfully and generated the maths. That's fine. As I mentioned, if you write any statement, either else constructor or a method or a statement or a variable creation, variable declarations or else method declarations, if you define outside the closing class, right? If you define outside the closing class, definitely it causes a compile issue because it's not a valid syntax. Whatever methods we define, that methods, variables, constructors, all these things should be inside the maths class in this case. Okay, let's save it again, and I'm coming back and try to rerun it. Obviously this time we'll get an error. It's an interesting error. It's saying like if you see here, implicitly declared classes are preview, picture, and are disabled by default, right? It means this entire syntax is wrong here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just Control Z and using this. Make sure, right? So it should be inside the class. Method should be inside the class. And remember, if you write any return type, mandatory you have to return something. Return keyword is important. Okay. So and also we have a different variety of methods. Like this is a instance method. The same way we can define a static method as well. This is all about the method, guys. Okay. This is all about the just introduction of the method. Okay, fine. You can write, in case of this is a public method, so it can be universal access. If you define it, if you make it, change this to private, then this method is accessible within the class only. Outside the class, we cannot access. Anyway, in higher level, we can discuss, we will discuss that, but it is a simple thing to understand, to write any class. If you want to write any void, right? Example, public void display. So in this case, what I'm going to write, some system dot out dot println as a maths class. Just simple message. So here you see, I'm not returning anything in this method from this method. Why? Because I have taken void as a return type, and I haven't passed any input arguments, input parameters. So no value comes here. No, not required. Simply call this method. That's it. And this method is not returning anything. So no need to catch it anyway. Okay. And if you save this method and saved it's a green color, I'm sorry, blue color, and I come back here and compile it again. So it will be successful, right? No issue with that. It will be successful. See, no errors here. It's compiled. Okay, guys, this is all about the method. How can you write it? Coding standards we have to follow, and then access modifiers we have to follow. You can write any number of access modifiers. I mean to say, either public, protected, and private. Just repeating those things and method names, and you know, these are the overview of the about the method. And what we can write inside the method. We can write inside the method statements. Statements. What is mean by statements? Like to perform any action, we have to follow some steps. Example, if you want to dial a number to talk to the friend, that is your action you are going to perform. What are the what are the steps you can take? Like first you open the phone and then go to the contact list and find for the right contact and just to select the contact and call them that particular number, right? Those are the couple of steps we have to write. So whatever the steps you are defining, those steps you have to write inside the method. We call it as a statements. Okay. Yeah, this is all about the method, guys. We will talk about the further topics in later tutorials. Okay. Thank you.